Is anyone else ready for things to just get back to normal? I mean, I know I am ready for things to get back to normal. I think most of us are there, except like you introverts who you've just been loving every moment of this pandemic. but I think most of us, we're ready for things to kind of go back to how they were, like back to normal. But like, we're smart people, right? We know that going back to like the normal, that's just not going to happen. Right? In fact, most of us, we've been talking about the new normal, right? This new normal that's coming. And what I know is that there's going to be things from the normal that will carry into the new normal. But there's also going to be things in the new normal that are just going to be forced upon you, whether you like it or not. But there's also another layer of the new normal that I believe you and I are going to need to be intentional about choosing if we want the new normal to become a better normal. And I believe one of the biggest choices that you and I are going to have to be intentional about making in order for the new normal to become a better normal is how we love. If you missed the first couple messages, I would encourage you to go back and watch those messages. But to kind of catch you up to speed, to give you a little snapshot of where we've been. You see, what we've recognized is that your generation is a generation that values love. Your generation values love in this deep kind of way that most other generations can't say that they've done. You see, you value love, and I love that. I think that that's awesome. And if I can just be real here, I think Jesus loves that too, because Jesus was all about love. In fact, Jesus, when he tried to sum up the entirety of what it means to be a Jesus follower, he said to love one another. But that's what it means to follow Jesus, that the single most thing that should characterize a follower of Jesus is love. Yet again, if we can just be real with each other, I think most of us have been taught to reduce love down to simply being nice, or being kind, or helping out. Now, don't mishear me here. Those are all great things, but I just don't think those are characteristics we should be aspiring to be. I mean, when I think about those things, like, those should be just the minimum standard for how we just treat each other as human beings, no matter what our faith is. You see, I think love is something completely different. And for Jesus followers, what Jesus did for us is that he actually clarified what love is. Right? Because Jesus didn't just say to love one another. He actually said to love one another as I have loved you. That Jesus actually defines what it means to show real love. Now, today I want to bring you a word that I hope is encouraging, that I hope brings you hope. But today I also need to let you know that for some of you, if you hear this message and you actually agree with what I'm about to say, that what Jesus set up for what love needs to look like, you might actually have to face a hard reality that maybe you've never actually chosen love a day in your life. That maybe you've chosen nice, and maybe you've chosen kind, but maybe never love. You see, Jesus tells us what love looks like, right? To love one another as I have loved you. And so Jesus kind of clarifies what real love actually looks like, which means we got to ask the question, so then how did Jesus love? Well, in 1 John 4:10, this is what we're told. It says this is real love, right? If you want to know what real love is, this is real love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. You see, what I need you to know about what real love is that real love requires sacrifice. Love requires sacrifice. You see, our world, like this kind of love is so rare in the world that we live in today that we've actually had to define this kind of love compared to all the other kinds of things that we consider love. That we actually have to call this kind of love sacrificial love. Now, sacrificial love for the Jesus follower, saying sacrificial love should be redundant. Saying sacrificial love should be like you're saying the same thing twice. When you say sacrificial love, it should be like you're saying hot fire. Like, is there any other kind of fire? Or it should be like saying cold ice, or dead corpse, or wet water, or Brian Sweaty. It should be like you're saying the same thing twice. Sacrificial love. You see, love is sacrificial. Now, maybe to put it a little bit differently, if it doesn't cost you something, it's not love. You see, love will always require something from you. Love will always require something from you. A few years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was asked a question that has completely changed the way that I think about how I should be loving in any given situation. Because depending on who you're with and the situation that you're in, love is going to, what it means to love is going to be different in any of those given situations. And when I was asked this question, it's now something that I actually try to ask myself on a daily basis, like multiple times a day, in any whatever situation I'm in. And it's a question that clarifies for me what I am to do in order to show love, in order to show Jesus-looking love. And the question is simply this: what does love require of me? What does love require of me? You see, sometimes love will require your physical strength. You see, some of you've been working out all summer, right? You've been in the gym and weight training, and you think that you've been doing it for the sports coming up in the fall, but what I need you to know is that God is actually preparing you so that you can love someone with your physical strength. Because sometimes love requires physical strength. Sometimes love requires your time. Sometimes what you want to do is like this thing over here with this group of people, but what love is going to require of you is to actually take your time and put it over here. To actually spend time with someone else. Sometimes love requires your emotional energy. Because, there's people that are kind of emotionally draining. And sometimes it's just people are having a hard time, and it requires a lot of emotional energy to be with them. But one of the things that I've recognized even in myself is that sometimes I neglect my sleep and I neglect my rest. And I'm just too tired to give someone my emotional energy. And you see, what I'm doing is I'm setting myself up that in a situation that requires my emotional energy, I don't have it. You see, sometimes love requires emotional energy. Sometimes love requires humility, but even more, sometimes love requires submission. Now that's a hard word for us to consider, because nobody wants to submit themselves to someone. Nobody wants to be lesser than or put themselves under someone else, but sometimes that's what love requires. You see, even Jesus did this. Jesus submitted himself to the rulers and authorities. Jesus submitted himself to his disciples sometimes. So Jesus even submitted himself to the poor and the marginalized, to the sick and the hungry. Jesus was constantly finding ways to putting himself underneath so that he would have opportunity to serve those in ways that are empowering. You see, sometimes, even though our world says, hey, you're you and you do you and you're an individual and it's all about you, nobody makes decisions for you, you run your own life, sometimes what love requires is not just humility, but submission. Sometimes love requires your hard-earned money. This is a hard one because I've worked for my money, right? I have a job. I did my chores. I did my stuff, and it's my money. I earned this money. And yet, sometimes what love requires of you is not that you spend your money on the new iPhone or a brand new laptop, but that you actually spend your money on someone else. Sometimes love requires you not to just go along with your friends. We've all been in this situation where we're in a group of friends and we know that they're about to make a stupid choice. But how often do we actually just go along with it? You see, sometimes love requires you to do something different than what everyone else is doing. Sometimes love requires you not to just wait for someone else to go and hope that someone else steps up. Sometimes love requires you to go first. You see, even in the verse that we looked at, right, in 1 John 4:10, it says that this is real love. Not that we loved God, but that God loved us. You see, in this, even God chooses to go first. That before you ever choose to love God, he chooses to love you. Because that's what love requires. That sometimes love requires you to put yourself on the line for the sake of showing someone else that they have value and that they have worth. You see, all of this, before the pandemic ever hit, before the new normal was ever even a conversation that we were having, we were stuck in the normal. And choosing sacrificial love, choosing love that actually cost you something, really wasn't something that most of us would ever do. Because life was just too easy back then. We were stuck just doing what we've always done. I mean, why would we get out of our comfort zone? Why would we try something new and do something different and sacrifice for someone else when we didn't have to? But you see, if we want the new normal to become a better normal, we have to change the way that we love. And I believe that Jesus painted a real clear picture of what it means to love in a way that really truly changes not just your own heart, but changes the hearts of others. Sacrificial love. Now, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this and you are not a Christian, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for watching something here that's part of a church and a Christian conversation. It's awesome that you would be here and join us. And what I need you to know is that if you're here and you're not a Christian, you're off the hook with all this. This kind of love isn't actually required of you. I would invite you into it. I think that it's life-giving. I think that there's so much promise in this kind of love. But when Jesus said to love one another as I have loved you, that was a command really only for those who would say that they're followers of Jesus. Which means if you are a follower of Jesus, the standard is high. That when you choose to follow Jesus, what you're saying is that you're choosing love that will cost you something. Love that is sacrificial. And you see, this kind of love, it's not easy. And it's not convenient. And it's not comfortable. It's hard work. It's really hard. But you see, the beauty of this kind of love, the beauty of this kind of love that Jesus doesn't just invite us into, but commands his followers to live out. Again, not that it's easy or convenient, but the beauty of it is that when you are willing to sacrifice anything, you are no longer a slave to anything. You see, when everything that you have, when everything that you own, when everything that you are is now a gift that can be given away, there's nothing that anyone could ever steal from you. Because it was a gift anyways. It's something that you were going to give anyways. There's so much freedom in this kind of love. And I think Jesus knew that. And I think that's why Jesus calls his followers to love in a way that costs you something. And Jesus was the perfect example of this. I mean, Jesus was always loving people at cost to himself. I mean, even to the very end where Jesus gave his life as a way of showing his love. You see, Jesus understood this kind of love, and at the end of the day, what did love cost Jesus? Everything. And for Jesus' followers, for you and me, sometimes that's what love costs us too. But it's beautiful. Me, I want to choose that love. How about you?